article in the news today about it was, I didn't add it, but it's like bar at the Jersey Shore shutting down, and I was like, oh no, is it the Osprey that mom was just talking about the other day? But no, it's some other bar. It's a world famous bar. I was like, oh no.
She never asked again about where I was going to take her. However, she did ask today. Your name came up because she asked today about seeing her friend in Glen Ridge. The one at the beginning, I said, if you want to go. And finally, I was like, all right, Mom, forget it. You're not doing me any favors. So now at the last minute, she decides she wants to go. I said, well, there's no time. But then she's talking about her friends getting together on a Zoom call
Yeah.
in June. I go, really? And who's going to make that happen for you? And
Yeah.
she's like, you are. I said, I'm not going to be up there in June to do a Zoom call. You're on your own. Well, I'll fly Christopher up. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure.
For a Zoom? Oh no.
I'm gonna fly up there to set you up on a Zoom call with other. I would love to be a fly on the wall with a bunch of 89-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
Can
you guys hear? Can you guys see me?
I bet you everyone's gonna have some grandchild.
That or some injury, some hip replacement.
Oh yeah. And this is Grandma's
I can't
comment.
feel my teeth anymore.
She goes, well, probably most of us will be dead by then anyhow. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's what I
lovely,
mean.
Mom.
Yeah,
Lovely.
that's grandma for you, I guess. The doom and gloom, guys. For those of you wondering where my mom gets it, there we go. That's where it comes from.
I forget you put this all on the stream, but oh yeah, that's
not all of it, but
that's the cold hard reality of Grandma.
Oh yeah.
So now she's all upset because it was a whole day of shit you lose. I asked you at the beginning when you were here for 3 weeks. You said no, you didn't want to go. Now you asked me.
Now you want to make the move. But
yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing much is going on down here. Weather was crap today.
Yeah,
absolute crap. Yeah, I heard it was raining last night into this morning, so I thought we were going to lose power.
You know the farm at the end of the street with the white fences. I don't know if you want to blank that out. So I went with Grandma to go get her wine and the pizza. When we came back, she was shocked. You know how there's a farm on both sides, those cornfields, and then there's a field, and you make that right to go down to the street to our house?
Yeah.
That whole field was water.
Wow, really? You guys got that much rain?
We got that much rain, a lot of flooding, and they shut the road down, so we had to go all the way out to 7 minutes to get home. That's happened before, but I've never seen that field completely drenched, like completely filled with water. Even the other side had some water in it in the field, but this one was completely watered.
Wow, that is I don't remember the last time we saw that much water since Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah, it was freaked Grandma out because she's never seen that much, She's used to snow.
Oh yeah, that's true. Gotta love the north.
In her area they had 14 inches
of rain.
Of snow.
Oh wow. Wait, when? Last
night.
Well, after we just talked about how there's going to be no more snow?
Well, that was the funny part because I said, oh, remember when you told me, Mom, March 19th is going to be springtime? Imagine if I took you up there and there was a snowstorm today. So she conveniently forgets. That's when she's got convenience senility. Right?
My memory. Yeah.
Talking about? What about March 19th?
I didn't say that, Irene.
So a friend sent a picture of the snow up there, and I showed it to her, and she thinks that's not from there. That's fake. That's off the internet, that picture. Okay. And then they're supposed to get ice on top of it, so winter's still pretty strong in the Northeast.
Wow. I have to believe Chuck got shut in then.
Yeah, as of this morning, he only had about 5 inches that had been cleared, but it snowed all day, so I don't know the final tally, and I didn't really ask. I'm sure we'll hear it during our podcast.
Oh yeah. We'll hear it. And, I don't think I've never heard Grandma on the podcast. Like I never hear it in the background, unless she's like right next to you while she takes it.
Oh well, okay. I should share this with you. Maybe I shouldn't because now she's on the hunt to get on the podcast. She saw your grandfather's thing on there, the picture of you with your grandfather. So now all of a sudden she's second guessing her podcast. Why again did I not have my podcast? Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah.
Say, well, no, you want to do it, but you went all crazy on us and decided you didn't want it. So I'm just forewarning you. She now wants to subscribe, but she feels she has to do it under some pseudonym. Like you can't have family members.
No, it's just under, no. You can tell her to subscribe to the podcast channel, though. I won't do my main channel.
Yeah, but she's not understanding. She thinks she has to use like her maiden name.
Oh, come up with
Mom,
a Grandma Cakes. Is that what we're gonna put her as?
and how much is this going to cost me? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
As though I asked her to do it. I go, Mom, you don't have to do it at all, though.
How'd she see Papa's? Just came up and like recommended?
I don't know if it came up or if she Googled you. She might have put your name in. That's her new thing. She Googles people all day.
Yeah. So she probably saw it.
I'd rather she yammer about herself than watch your grandfather and yammer about that. That'll drive you
Well, it's better than her watching me swear on live streams.
yeah.
But
it's just so funny. She doesn't understand the process. And she's just convinced like she has to use a different name. Like it's one of these things where you can't have family subscribe or it works against you. So anyhow.
no,
it's
well, I forget what Aunt D's username is, but Aunt D likes every single TikTok I post. I don't even think she watches them, but she's got a funny name. I forget which one it is. So, but all right. That is what it is. Yeah. That's it. How'd you know that?
I remember years ago seeing that on stuff from her. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. That is
Yeah.
it. All right, you ready to get this started, Mom? Number
Ready.
again. I don't even keep track of what numbers we're on anymore.
Well, how am I supposed to give you a summary if we don't know? Don't you have a count somewhere?
I do, but like, I
And
think
how
this
can
is
we have the
85.
100 party if we don't even know we're at 100?
Well, everyone's asking me to do a 100 mukbang. You know what those are? That's where
No.
people like pick a restaurant and then they buy like one of everything on the menu and then you just do a video of them eating it. It's one of the most popular categories on YouTube. It's all, listen, I'm about to get some heat here, but here it comes. It's always the most overweight, disgusting
boy.
people that do it. I shouldn't say
Okay.
always, but people will do crab legs and there's just butter all over and it's like, ugh.
Ugh.
But I'd pick a. Let's be honest though, we all want to do it.
Hey.
Let's be honest though, we all want to do it. We just choose not to because we have some self-respect.
I thought you were going to go there like I would fit in quite nicely with that crew.
No, I would never say that. Not to your face, Mother.
That's my face.
Yeah. I might do a Burger King run. I haven't seen Burger King in a while. Give me one of everything on the menu. I don't even know how much that would cost.
I was out with Grandma down in Flemington. You can block that out. So she decides she wants lunch. I don't want to eat lunch. I just want to go home and we have groceries, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, let's go to Sonic. You know, Sonic, you don't even have to get out of the car.
I think Grandma told me. She texted me or something. She's like, I'm going to Sonic. I was like,
Go to
thanks for the update, Grandma.
She had never been to one. And we're in Dad's car, right? They bring us 2 burgers, didn't want it. French fries, didn't even eat them. She only ate half the burger, but meanwhile, I'm eating the burger wrapped in the foil so I don't make a mess and it's going everywhere.
Well, hold on, we gotta tell everyone. My dad does not like food in his car, especially his nice cars. So it's like, hey, you gotta, you know.
Well, sure enough, I see, a pickle slides down the seat, goes down the seat, leaves all ketchup. So I'm wiping it up, getting it all clean. I'm like, damn it, I didn't even want to come here. So finally, she finishes the half a burger in like an hour. We dump everything out, which, she's having conniptions because we're throwing out good food, but I'm not driving with it in the car. Long story short, this was on a Wednesday. Thursday, Dad gets in the car to drive upstate. And he goes, why does my car smell like onions? I said, well, we went to Sonic, and I've been airing it out, hoping that it would stop smelling. He gets up there, and that night, I get a text message from Dad showing, like, a ketchuped onion.
Oh.
The door. And he goes, that's why I'm smelling the onions the whole day.
Oh.
So, needless to say, I'm like, sorry, I'll detail your car.
Yeah, really.
Realize it. All because she had to go to Sonic or had to have lunch. And I was like, damn it, I don't want to stop for lunch.
I remember in Nana's car. So when my great grandmother passed away, my brother got her car, which was that Honda Accord. I remember distinctly on the way to school, because I forget why Kenny was driving me, but
He always drove you. You were like,
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I forgot. So Kenny gets his license. I just remember he used to drink coffee in his lap. Like he wouldn't use the cup holders because that was for his phone. He took a turn and the whole thing, like the second we went out of the driveway, went down into the whatever. I just remember Kenny was kind of late for school because we used to have homeroom to start. So he didn't care if he missed homeroom. And I think he ran into the mall because our high school, Immaculata, was right across from the Bridgewater Mall. And he ran in and grabbed as much like whatever he can find basically to clean it because he knew Dad was going to freaking murder him. It was a lot of coffee. I just remember. Thank God for those mats. But
Well, Grandma got coffee at Sonic. Who gets coffee with a burger? Okay. I dumped
that's
about
Graham.
half of it out. And I'm like, Mom, you just can't risk spilling that in the car. And then as soon as we were done eating, she thought she's taking it for the ride. I'm like, absolutely not. We're dumping that coffee. So chug it or sit in the car.
Yeah, jeez.
She's not doing that again.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
That
we
what
talking
sucks
about
about that
food.
car is that car, the interior is basically white. Like, it's so beige, it's white. So any
I
little
thought I got it
stain.
all. I swear to God. I'm like, I don't know how an onion with ketchup got in that door panel when I cleaned everything up as best I could. And I don't even think I spilled, mind you, wrapped in the foil. I was like peeling the foil back to take each bite. That's how, it was a very good burger, by the way, if Sonic would like to
I don't
sponsor
know
you.
if I've ever been to a Sonic. Maybe once when I was younger. I couldn't tell you a single thing on that menu.
Just, it's all, fast food.
Whenever I hear Sonic, I think of Dairy Queen. Like I think of a dessert place. But I
Oh,
get,
yeah, because they push their shakes. They have very good
Oh, okay.
shakes. Except,
There's a Dairy Queen by us, and so we came back from the shore with Aunt Sue and the team, and we go. She goes, "There's a Dairy Queen down the street from where you are," and I said, "Really? Let's go." Now I'm expecting. Again, it's been a long time since I've been to a Dairy Queen, Mom.
right?
It's like we get there, and I'm like, "This is gonna be sick." It's Dairy Queen. It is like a small. I don't even know how to explain. It's like an office box, It's super tiny. It's not much bigger than the room I'm currently in. It was just one person in there working the whole thing. I was like, oh man, I was a little let down.
It used to be.
Yeah, Dairy Queen. Yeah, yeah, that's an understatement. But it was good. It was kind of hard to eat. I just remember I was eating a brownie. It was the hardest brownie I've ever had in my life. I was like, it wasn't even.
Door opens.
Yeah, clearly, like it wasn't heated or something because it was like eating a cookie. I was like, I thought I got cookies and ice cream, and then I looked down, it's a brownie. I'm like, what? Yeah.
Okay, now I know what's going on down there. Okay, now I'm getting a picture of what's
That
going
was the
on.
first time I've been to a Dairy Queen. Like I haven't been eating much besides that. Like that was a month ago, I would say.
Okay.
So that was another time
I've been in a
recently.
while. I thought the appeal to the Sonic was one less hour I have to spend getting Grandma out of the car into the restaurant.
Right, because they come to you, right?
Well, she's just very slow,
Oh.
and you pull right in, and they come to your car. You order it at a screen, and the lady brings the food right out to the car, so you don't even have to get out of your car.
With the roller skates? Or do
No,
they-
no roller skates.
They don't do
No,
that anymore? Is that Sonic?
not anymore.
Oh.
Well, that's a drive-through. That's how they used to. I thought Grandma would appreciate it because that's from the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah.
They had the roller skate, the drive-in milkshake place, but no, they're known for their wacky shakes. They're delicious shakes. But we were
Sonic
drinking
will
coffee.
take the
It was a little
sponsorship.
chilly. Yeah, was delicious.
You know what we need more of, which I haven't been to since I was at Scranton, I think? Johnny Rockets. We
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
enough Johnny Rockets. I haven't seen a Johnny Rockets in a long time, but I hear good
There's
things.
one up in Lake George, right by the Great Escape, Great Adventure.
Grandma, I'm coming home to do your Zoom meeting.
Like that, right. We went. That might have been the last time you were there. We stayed when you guys were little. Somebody's graduation, I think. We stayed. No, Grandma's birthday. I think it was her 80th. We stayed at the Great Adventure Lodge, and that's where the Johnny Rockets
You're right.
is.
That is the Johnny Rockets I'm talking about. I don't know why I thought
Yeah,
it
we
was
went there
Scranton.
for breakfast.
Yeah, because I was trying
Yeah.
to do the math on that one. All right, let's get started because we just did 20 minutes. So let's go right into this one because this was a pretty big one. Putin says gunman who raided Moscow concert hall tried to escape to Ukraine. Kiev denies involvement. So I read this article. I think I heard earlier in the week about this situation, but I don't know
Yeah.
the details. I just know it happened. I just know the details from this. So can you give everyone kind of the rundown of what actually happened in Moscow?
Well, I wasn't paying much attention to it at first because it coincided with the big Kate Middleton story and other stuff that was going on in the news that sort of eclipsed it. But there was an attack on the Moscow Crocus City Concert Hall. A group by the name of Picnic was performing, and in the process, it killed, as of the time I wrote this, 133 people. I don't know, more people are dead.
Right.
So Putin claims that 4 men were responsible for the attack. I think they rounded up 11. They said Muslims in a subsequent article. 4 men were responsible for the attack. They were captured. He says they were captured as they purposely left an opening for them to flee to Ukraine, and that's how they nabbed these individuals.
Right.
Naturally, he's trying to put the blame on Ukraine, saying that they orchestrated this. Kiev, Ukraine, they said they were not involved. And meanwhile, ISIS, mostly from the Afghanistan region, they're claiming responsibility because Putin had caused some trouble he had done some dealings in Syria, squashing ISIS, and this was the retaliation. The U.S., of course, has to chime in. They claim it was ISIS based on our intelligence, and Putin was warned that this attack was imminent. So that he was by the U.S., I
Right.
think by other European countries, had said, we're seeing some stuff on the radar that ISIS is going to commit some terrorist act in your area, just an FYI. He doesn't seem to want to believe that. He has it in his head, and we'll see what intelligence he has, that it is definitely Ukraine-backed, that they were the ones involved and that they were causing this. The concert goers were shot at point-blank range, and explosives were thrown in the building. So the building has basically been destroyed.
Yeah, well, they lit fires, too, and the fires were so great that it actually collapsed the roof. So
onto other people, they're digging them out now. So that's why I say it's 133 people so far that they know were killed in this attack.
Now, I don't know if it's tough to kind of, it's weird because you have someone saying that they did it, and it's like, why wouldn't you believe them with the track record that they have? I think, I don't know if it's almost like a paranoia in a sense, but like Putin's kind of saying, well, it's Kiev that did it, not anyone else, or they had a part in it. I don't know if it's that. It's just like if you did a terroristic act and you want to go somewhere that would be considered quote unquote safe and it's the nearest place possible, I mean, it would probably be Kiev because they're the enemy of Russia. So you could make the argument, oh, we did something bad in Russia. Can you take us in until we can get out? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's just more you have, politically speaking, the U.S. Let's assume that maybe their intelligence isn't that it was just possibly ISIS, but they're not going to want to throw Ukraine under the bus because we're supporting them financially, right? So for Putin to be adamant as of right now that it was Ukraine that backed ISIS or that encouraged them to do it, right. It's a little suspicious because they're at war. So you could look at it both ways. Obviously, Putin not wants it, but if he wants to point a finger, it certainly helps him from a military perspective to say that Ukraine did it and caused it.
Right.
From the rest of the world's perspective, since everybody is, pro-Ukraine and it couldn't have been them and these poor people are dying, meanwhile Russian soldiers are dying too, it's so easy to say, people would not be thrilled if Ukraine lost that kind of attack, and meanwhile we're shelling billions of dollars to them.
Right.
Because they're the defenseless country that needs to take on the evil Putin. So, and this also happened a week after Putin just won an election.
Yeah.
So it sends kind of a message too, and he has to look tough.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird because to your point, you can make the argument he's kind of taking advantage of a terrible situation to spin the narrative his way, right?
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't really make sense when you see where the attack was and where they were fleeing to. And what I mean by that is you're talking about people that claim they are part of ISIS. We did this as ISIS. We did it. We tried to flee. And then you go, well, it couldn't have been them. That to me is kind of a weird way of trying to spin it in your own way.
It could have been ISIS fighters.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But who encouraged them to do it? Did they get the backing of Ukraine? And interestingly enough, I happened to be flipping the dials this morning, and I saw an ex-military individual who's a commentator who's constantly on news shows, was trying to make the point that, everybody's so concerned about our border, they're not understanding just how difficult it is over in Ukraine because now NATO needs to get involved when you have these type of situations. And he's trying to make it spin like we're being naive when we don't realize we have to worry about Ukraine's border because of Putin. I mean,
right.
You're stretching it for a lot of people in this nation who really just don't even know what's going on or do not understand.
I can't tell you the last time I saw anything on that war. I truly can't. I can't tell you when I was going through news today. The only news about that war is this, which is why we're talking about it. Other than that, I don't know what's going on over there from a battle perspective.
No, all that's going on is that we keep funneling more and more money. We had another resolution last night.
And we have nothing. And we have no, in the wins category, we got nothing.
Not only that, we had, which I didn't bring it up because to me, I'm starting to get immune to it. We had a crowd of migrants pushed through the National Guard in El
I saw
Paso,
that. Yeah.
broke down the wall, and made it then to the next wall. But it was a total act of aggression. They were being told to stop. They didn't stop. They kept pushing. All military-aged men, by the way, just happened to be men of military age, pushed their way through. And here's our National Guard. They can't shoot. They can't do anything. But meanwhile, we're sending bullets and funding a border war on the other side of the world,
Yeah.
whether you support it or not. You got to ask yourself, what the hell are you doing here? And now we're shoveling more billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I saw Douglas McKay. He's a correspondent. He was totally owning a BC reporter, a woman. And he's a war reporter. I don't know which news he's with, but he's been doing the October 7th massacre in Israel, and he's also covered the Ukraine war, and comparing the two. And she's talking about, the occupied Gaza, and he's saying, who are they occupied by? What are you talking about? Nobody occupies Gaza. Well, they lost their land. So he's browbeating her. But in the course of it, he says, well, if you feel that way about Israel, why don't you feel the same way over there in Ukraine?
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways when he's comparing the two wars.
How'd she back out of that one?
He was very good, I have to say, because she, what they always fall back to after trying to make the case is, I'm the interviewer, I'm asking the questions.
Yeah.
In other words, don't ask me questions.
Yeah.
But he goes, but you're giving misinformation. You're telling your listeners things that are not true. I've been there. I've been to both places. That's what's going on. But anyhow, we have such a dichotomy of, well, our border is different than their border, and that war is different than this war. And frankly, American citizens who are funding all of it, they're not buying it anymore.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. But so this situation for this, I mean, it's terrible that people were just going to a concert and this happened. But again, I think this is pretty clear cut, in my opinion, that it wasn't, even if Ukraine had some sort of reason to push it. ISIS is saying that they're the ones that did it and they're proud to do it. So I feel like it's almost like Putin's trying to convince the people that we only have one enemy when, let's be honest, Russia has made a lot of enemies. So it's kind of hard to kind of agree with Putin on this one.
The only thing I would say is, remember the Nord Stream pipeline.
Yeah, we probably did that. We did
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
But whoever did it, the intelligence is very different depending on who you spoke to.
That's true.
And then lo and behold, we call, I don't remember what Putin's side was on that. I don't know if he flat out said the U.S. did it or implied that it wasn't who we said it was, but they weren't necessarily wrong. I think the jury is still out on the facts about who actually blew up that pipeline.
Yeah.
And, they tried to pin it on somebody else, and guess what? That wasn't the case.
Right. There's too
So
much
until I
information.
see intelligence, sadly, I can't even believe my own intelligence agency anymore.
Yeah. So I think from the pipeline perspective, I think if we watch the Tucker Carlson interview, it's not that he says that we did it, but he gives all the reasons why he wouldn't do it. It just didn't make sense. So
Right.
To his point, it definitely wasn't Russia that did it, and then it only leaves a couple options. It's either going to be Ukraine or us. I mean, everyone else doesn't really have another reason to, because that pipeline was all the gas that went to Europe anyway. So why would you screw your own people?
Right, but this is a similar situation where, okay, ISIS says they did it. ISIS is claiming they did it. But politically speaking, they may be backed by Ukraine, who said, listen, you go in there and do it. If we do it, we're going to lose the
Right,
backing
of
of the
course.
West financially. But if you go in and do it for us, this is the kind of, frankly, I'll use the word shit that these
Politicians?
no, not in politicians, but this is the type of guerrilla warfare that goes on around the world, including us in the Western worlds. They've done it too. Pinning it on somebody else, or willing to take the fall because the greater good of causing more chaos in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll find out. I mean, if they want us to, we'll find out. Some reporter will dig deep enough and figure out. It might take 2 years from now, but
Yeah.
we'll know who actually caused it.
Well, it's too
But
bad.
again,
It's too bad we didn't transition earlier from when we were talking about the migrants coming in, because we got to talk about the squatters. I've been learning a lot about this, but I think I'm a little off in the sense of I always thought, so this is what I thought the squatting rule was, and this is what makes me so angry. If someone was living in our attic, broke into our house, was living in our attic for X amount of days, they legally can live there. That's Fortunately, that's not how it works. What this talks about is if you are leasing rooms and someone stays for a certain amount of time, like subletting or whatever, they have a certain protection in the system. So for those of you that are like, so are you saying anyone can come into my home? That's not how it works. Thank God.
Well, technically, yes, that is what's been happening.
That's if you,
But
but
the rule is,
go
if
ahead.
it's abandoned or somebody
Right.
isn't living in it, it's usually applies to, in theory, dilapidated buildings or abandoned buildings. Squatters are now taking it to the nth level because they are protected by laws more so than the landowner. And people are starting to realize this as more and more squatters are moving into houses that are not abandoned, but the homeowner isn't there. Maybe they go south for the winter. Or in a couple of the recent cases, it was homes that the parents died and the children inherited it.
Right.
They own that home, even though they're not living in it, and it's up to them to decide they want to sell it. But individuals are moving into these houses. And the ways the laws are written in many states, with the exception of Florida now, thank you, Governor DeSantis, if you can hold out 30 days, it's even harder for the homeowner to get a person out.
Yeah.
Why the explosion? Well, now we have all these migrants that have moved into these cities. And not that it wasn't going on beforehand, but now all the Democrat mainly cities are screwed because the Democratic voters want them out of these facilities and so they're giving them notices. You have to be out in 30 days. Well, where do you expect these people to go?
But they're just going to find the next house to squat. But it's just kind of wild. So this was the one that I saw about the guy how he's getting rid of these squatters. They really didn't do a great job at explaining what he does. Basically, this guy has become, essentially he just goes in and ruins their lives by just like living. This situation is a little different than the others in the sense of he's someone that sublets his house so people can rent out certain rooms. And then basically they won't leave even though their leases are up because they have this immunity after the 30 days or whatever. So they take advantage of the rule. And he's like, cool story. Let me put security cameras in that you can't touch. I'm going to blast music. I'm going to constantly be watching TV. Like, it's kind of funny how he did it, but he still is the owner. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, this Flash Shelton, I think his name is in the one article, his mother owned the place, and it turned out there were squatters in there. So he she leases her home or property to him. He then watches it and watches the squatters leave.
Yep.
Once they leave, he basically, I assume, breaks in, unless they had changed the locks. He breaks in with his lease agreement. And now he becomes the squatter in essence, but he legally can be there.
Because he has the actual lease.
Well, they're going to show you a lease too in some instances. But at the end of the day, it's his word against their word. He's a renter or a squatter too. So now you got the police in a quandary. If they show up, normally, like recently, they arrested the landowner. The person who owned the property, and took her away in New York City. Well, now you got two squatters, and one is standing there with a lease that says, this is the owner, and I leased this place for X number of dollars. So to add to it, or as an insurance policy to make his life easier, he puts up the security cameras, takes their stuff, dumps it outside, and changes all the locks.
Yep.
Now the burden is put on the squatter to prove that you belong there. Well, they don't have rights when they're up against another squatter, or at least not yet. So it's ingenious. And I just heard before this story, the same thing where landlords were hiring basically squatter vigilantes to go into these houses that they own and make the life a living hell of the people squatting there until they eventually leave. The only concern, obviously, there's a lot of things wrong with it. It's pointing out just how poorly these laws have been written.
Exactly.
And it's going to have to change. This is the cornerstone of America. When you have to prove you own something, and somebody who may
that's what makes me so angry about this. Like the idea, like, oh, I'm gone on vacation for 3 months or whatever. I have another home down in North America, down in Florida, and then I come home. There's guys that have been living in my house unattended because I haven't been there, and the house is legally theirs. How does that make sense?
They're causing, in many cases, thousands of dollars worth of damage.
They're using it for drugs, parties. They're doing some of them. I saw a thing of strip joints. They're using it as strip joints. Isn't that ridiculous?
And the burden is put on the landlord to
Yeah, does
prove,
it?
first of all, that you own it. Second of all, your insurance has to pay for it.
This is what scares me. It's common sense that this has to be changed, but there's a lot of common sense things that we clearly overlook. You know, there's a lot of people screwing the system here at the high levels, and no one's making the changes that are just basic common sense. Like if you're on the right or left and you don't agree with that, like that's not a political level, that's a common sense level.
Right. And we just had a judge, I don't think it was the Supreme Court, I think it was a federal court, but I might be wrong, ruled that the Second Amendment does allow non-citizens to have
Yeah,
guns.
which is ridiculous. That doesn't make sense.
Well, in a weird way, I understand why they decided that. But when you look at it from a big picture, when you have these scenarios with people going in and people that are not citizens who do, unfortunately, are not being forced to be detained, or we don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
What's to stop them from opening up fire and killing me when I go into
Exactly,
my
yeah.
property and demand that they leave?
But also,
And worse,
but the other
we
problem with
come
that,
harm.
the other problem with that is if you're an illegal. Here's the part that I feel like you might be forgetting here. To own a gun, you have to be a legal citizen. You have to have all the proof to get the gun. So any gun that they have would be considered an illegal firearm. The Second Amendment does not protect you from illegal firearms.
Well, it depends on how you interpret it. Remember the
Well,
ID and whatnot that you need. I don't know how much of that is federally required versus state by state
state by
required.
state, right?
Right? Like some states you can conceal carry, others you can't.
Yeah, but I think fundamentally, I think you're right. I think that stuff changes, but I don't think legally you can own a firearm as an illegal citizen.
Well, it wouldn't make sense to me, to your point, because you have to show ID. I mean,
Yeah.
at least supposedly.
Exactly.
Now, if they have a gun illegally and they used it in self-defense, which is what this case was about, when it was brought, this is illegal, needed to defend themselves. I don't know how that.
Yeah, but you get into that gray area, right?
Right.
Of course,
right.
everyone should defend themselves, but it's like, okay, but just because you give someone defense doesn't mean they're a good person and could do very bad things with that.
Well, and too many times people who legally have the guns are arrested. It doesn't mean that they're not released. Usually that's the follow-up story. You know, they get arrested because they shot somebody who was robbing them or whatever.
Right.
They get arrested, blah, 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 and then a few days later they get released. But the point is, why are they even getting arrested? This is like, if you're providing, here's my ID. You know, I shot the person self-defense, investigate. The person came in and broke in. That wasn't the case in the past. You weren't usually automatically arrested for defending. And not to say that you were allowed to just, travel the world or whatever. It had to be investigated. But it just seems we're taking a really bad turn here where the criminals are running the country. It's like the Old West all over again.
Yeah.
We have to bring in the vigilantes to be the law because there is no law. So this is highlighting it. I think this whole squatter. And I added that LeBron James one.
So this one's interesting. So I think there's more to this story, and I'll tell you why. So if you read, I'm sure you read this, but basically this is a guy who was basically a no-name actor who managed to kind of squat his way with a lease. So he had like a special. It was a fabricated lease that he was able to use, and they couldn't get him out because of the fabricated lease. So this guy, he was throwing these parties to say the least, and he was subletting everything so like people could stay, and in return they would just have to clean the house or whatever. But this is where, beautiful. Yeah, it's a gorgeous house. But so he would have hefty admission fee. This guy was so smart about it too. Like he turned this into a business. He was charging people money to come in, and it was a lot of money, like $500 to $1,500. Cleaning services, rooms for $150, which is pretty nice. But it gets to the end, and it says, and this is where I think that there's a little bit of like a more to the story situation, where it says how the guy managed to seize the property remains unclear, and then that it got somehow it was given back to the rightful owner, Adele Yamount, in December. This is what I think happened. I bet you the homeowner and this guy made some kind of deal, and that guy took advantage of the deal. And
possibly.
Yeah, and the guy couldn't get it, the Adele person. It said someone else was part of it. So whoever actually did the lease or whatever. I think they did some kind of deal under the table, and the guy took advantage of it, and he knew he could take advantage of it, and that's how he was able to do it. Because it doesn't make sense that he couldn't get arrested. So
Yeah.
that's why it's funny. It's a funny story because the guy, he didn't do anything illegal in the sense of, well, I guess it's illegal to fabricate a lease, but he didn't do anything illegal in the sense of, he lived out the 30 days, so he had the immunity.
Yeah.
So he was able to trick the citizens, quote unquote, that it was his house when it wasn't. But that's not really illegal because he had the immunity law. And then after a certain amount of time, it was like, yeah, this isn't working. And then he had to leave. I don't remember why they actually asked him to leave, but I think it was actually noise complaints that really screwed him in the end.
Yeah, I think well, and also neighborhoods like that, people keep an eye out on what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
If you have wealthy neighbors, they don't want transients in the neighborhood because they're often celebrities who don't want their life intruded on. You want to know who your neighbor is. That's why it's so expensive to live in those neighborhoods as well, because it weeds out the riffraff, right?
Exactly.
To make sure that you don't get this kind of stuff going on. Some places like this, they won't allow you to rent out your house. You have to either sell it or live there. You can't. They're very strict with those types of rules. But I think you're right. I think it might have been like an arrangement where this person just wanted somebody living in the house to make it look lived in.
Exactly.
While nobody was there.
That's a good point.
I created this whole scenario of, I'm going to have parties, and took it too far. So
did you just solve the mystery there, Mom? I think you just solved the mystery. I think you're right. Yeah. That would make
that could be what he claimed, that I was asked to stay here to avoid squatters coming in, and I had a few parties they got out of hand.
Yeah, exactly. And he was probably, and I'm sure that money he was making, that $500 to $1,500 for tickets, I'm sure he was giving back to the lease guy. You don't charge that. Yeah, he must have gotten a percent. But
or got a piece of it after a while when he heard how much the guy was making.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, how much are you charging for these parties? And can I come? All right, so this is the big one. Kate Middleton diagnosed with cancer. Very sad. But I haven't really been paying attention to this story. I got wind of this story a couple weeks ago, or last week. There was like this huge conspiracy theory going on about this and how everyone was like, what's going on with her and blah, blah, blah. Why is this now? Again, it's terrible that she has cancer and obviously it's horrible, but why is it? Why'd you put your screen too high, Mom?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, way too high. Why is this such a big deal? And again, I don't mean to sound rude in the sense of, you know what I mean? Like, what's so important about this?
What's the funny part was when I first saw this, it was a mixed emotion, which maybe a lot of other people are don't want to admit publicly. Like, first, my answer was, yes, she had cancer, because they were, and then you realize it's like, yeah, but she has cancer. They were giving this woman such a hard time between the whole, she's sick. Why is she sick? What is she doing? Is she really sick? Maybe they're getting divorced. Maybe there's an affair. Why is what's going on?
Let's rephrase that real fast. It's not that my mom's saying she's glad she has cancer. My mom is saying, my mom is saying, thank God, like it's not something worse. Because the way that they were saying it was.
No. That's not why I said it. That's my point. They were making such a big deal with all these conspiracy theories that I was so glad that she had such a legitimately in your face.
Okay, there we go. Thanks for the exclamation there, because people are going to take that so out of context.
Well, that's why I was explaining it, because I want them to understand that they were piling on all this garbage on this woman who, with 3 small children, and I know they're privileged and, we get all that, but she works fairly hard in terms of royalty and what they do. She doesn't strike me as a complainer, as somebody in the U.S. who's watched the family. She does her job. She's very dignified. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but point is, she told everybody she had medical issue. She needed to step back. Then all the conspiracy theories, even Hollywood celebrities were making fun.
Every
of the
podcast
situation.
has talked about it, and I was like, something about pictures with the kids and their fingers being crossed, like stuff like that. Everyone's like, this is so weird. So
they had Mother's Day over there, so she produced a photo of her with the kids that was edited because she's a amateur photographer.
Right.
And naturally, they ripped into her, and she had to pull some of the media said, we have to pull the picture because it's not factual.
Hey, Mom, can he call me? I just want to check if it's not important.
So as all these stories are building and nobody's saying anything, then this her husband's godfather died back in February, around the 20th, and he pulled out of going Every royal was at this funeral. He pulled out of going at the last minute. Oh, and more conspiracies. What's going on? He said for personal family reasons. Oh, they're getting divorced. Oh. They piled on. And to their credit, she stayed silent. Buckingham Palace was going crazy. And that's why I say they waited till their kids started Easter break, because they get a 3-week break over there in the UK.
Right.
Because they didn't want their kids in the firestorm. And she releases this video where she says, basically, okay, people, let me shut you all up. I just found out I had cancer. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it was like a bittersweet moment, because I'm like, good, shut these people up. I'm not I'm an American. We don't believe in royalty and all that stuff. But when you see this family and you see what they go through and how horrible social media is.
Remember, my mom and her sister cried when Diane died. So.
He did.
Yeah.
Diana died.
Go ahead.
That's the mother.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it's just, I appreciate when they work hard and when they do things, they are privileged. But she's a very classy person. We're stuck with the Meghan Markle and the Harry. Thank you very much, UK. You can have them back,
Yep.
And they've risen above it. They haven't been catty. She's done the best. It was just more she legitimately was sick, but nobody could wrap their heads around it. They had to attack her, and that's why it was bittersweet. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to see somebody suffer from cancer, and especially when you have young children, and I'm sure that's very upsetting for the children. It was upsetting for them. That's apparently why the husband backed out, because they had just found out that her surgery had cancer involved. But she explains it all very dignified way, says as much as she wants to say, and ends it with, letting all people who struggle with this, whatever form of cancer, that you're not alone. Keep faith and hope.
Right.
So it was very nicely done, but it was also a moment. And now you have all these social media people coming out and sort of apologizing as best they can or backtracking for what they said. And lesson learned to people, keep your mouth shut sometimes. Everybody has to have an opinion. You don't know the facts. And they try and make stuff up.
Yeah. Luckily, in today's day and age, it's kind of a lot, depending on the cancer, of course, and it sounds like she's in an early stage cancer. We got some medicines now, some medications that can really help. I was seeing articles on how far they've come with cancer medications. Like, we can pretty much get rid of first stage cancer in most cases now, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Like long-term cancer. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. I mean, she made it sound like they've caught whatever it is early. They didn't think it would be cancer, but they caught it early. Regardless, she still has to do apparently chemotherapy to clean it out, and that we know can be grueling, although they've made advances with that in terms of how bad chemotherapy can be to other parts of the body. So, but whatever. It was none of anybody's business to begin with.
Yeah, well, that's the downside of being a royal, right? Your whole life is a spectacle.
Well, it's bad enough if people are guessing what's wrong, but when they start making stuff up, and you have small kids, you don't want you have to raise kids in a bubble, and they're trying not to do that, or just as much as they could, considering how privileged they are. My whole point was it's a lesson for a lot of people that, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's an in your face. I don't think it was her intention, but it definitely shut a lot of people up in terms of, we told you she was sick. We told you she would come out with a statement or we'd update you. And now I saw their mother, Diana, when you're just talking about, her butler came out, who was around when the boys were growing up, and said, I just hope they didn't pressure her into doing it against her will. Force her to do this because of all the headache and the PR that was working against the royal family. And still people coming out saying, oh, I don't know how much longer they'll last because the two main people are sick with cancer. It's like, come on. It's been around thousands of years.
It's just that's just media nowadays. But it's funny because I know, not to call out Tim Dillon, but I know his last podcast was like the Kate Middleton conspiracy, and I'm like, how many podcasts are about to get deleted because they were like, oh, conspiracy, and it's just, man, the lady has cancer. That's terrible. But yeah, I mean,
so now it should be a lesson like that. It should be
you
like
can't run with everything.
Lesson, right? You can only do so much, but when it became so nasty, it's one thing when it's a conspiracy thing, but when you start getting nasty about it, oh, they're getting divorced, oh, there's something wrong with her, oh, she wants out of the family, it's like, come on.
Yeah, that's really, it's depressing, but hopefully she gets better. Boom, how about this one? Planet Fitness. Now, I want to start this one by saying I think everyone who actually goes to gyms hates Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness sucks. Go ahead. So you could take this one away because this is your article.
Well, this was another. This week I just tried to pick stories that were standing out
Yeah.
for the week. I'm so done with these whole transgender stories. But I'm saying you might want to dump this stock because if it goes the way of Bud Light,
Yeah. Yeah.
one of these stories of. So this older woman goes into the locker room and she sees, and she took a picture of him. I think it's posted in this story. If you want to scroll down.
It's a video.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing about this individual, to my mind, looks female. Okay?
except for
And he
those
claims
terrible
that-
leggings.
Well, is that what I can't even tell. But I'm sorry, there's nothing to say that this is a female. And it just, this expression begs to whatever. How can you even, certain things we understand culturally that, okay, something looks somewhat womanish, something looks somewhat, we're in tune that way. It may be wrong for the environment, but to look at that and say, that's not a man. A child who has no bias is going to go in there and not think that that's a lady based on how he's raised. So this woman doesn't want to see a lady shaving her face in the locker room. So Planet Fitness has a policy that they're open to everybody and you could use the bathroom you want. She winds getting kicked out. I think also because she was taking pictures.
It is illegal to take pictures of someone in a private area like that in a bathroom.
Right. But the alternative is if she came out and complained, nobody would have believed her. I understood why she did it. They kicked her out. That's fine. But already the stock price went down. It bumped up a little bit. But the point is, they have pictures of this individual. I didn't post it here outside of the situation, dressed as a man, walking around as a man, not appearing in any way, shape, or form as a transgender.
Abusing the system a little bit there. I know that they were talking about it, but quite a few, especially in the more liberal states, they actually have a bathroom just for transgender people. So this is just a situation of it's a Planet Fitness that just doesn't have that bathroom. So it's probably in, I forget what state it said it was.
Well, this is their policy across the board that they're open to everybody.
Right, but you have to have separate bathrooms. I mean, that's just logic. You can't, I know that's their policy, but it's not a good policy.
LGBTQ does not, the transgender, I should say, they do not want separate bathrooms.
That's ridiculous.
You're stigmatizing them. They want to go into the bathroom that they feel is appropriate for them. And that's not fair, in my opinion, to people of a specific gender. Like in this case, apparently her woman name is Patricia Silver. She claims there was a little girl in there in a towel who was really put off. I don't know the age of the girl, but really put off when she came out and saw a man in there.
I was just about to ask. I don't know what the age limit is at a Lifetime, but yeah, Lifetime's always sucked. It's the worst gym.
No, not Lifetime.
I'm sorry. Good call. Planet Fitness. Lifetime, I apologize. Yeah. Lifetime, you're sick. Yeah, I like you. It's Planet Fitness fucking sucks. I'll say that.
So now Planet Fitness is using an aid to take the LGBT people to the bathroom. That's what this subsequent article is about.
Right.
Okay. So, and another person went in, and the aide said, "Well, if you're uncomfortable, you can use a stall." Well, you know what? It's getting ridiculous now because it's predominantly women who are being told to put up and shut up, and it's not right. You know, men have their safe space. Women should be entitled to their safe space. Obviously, most guys, they don't care.
Yeah, I wouldn't care.
Woman is going to walk into a man's bathroom. I mean, very rarely. I'm sure that does not happen that often.
Yeah.
That a woman who's now transgendering to a man, maybe they feel comfortable, but I don't think there are a lot of stalls.
Now that I think about it, I think my new gym is all, it's men and women, but it's in the sense of everyone has separate rooms. Like it's a box almost. So they're all kind of like locked. So I'm thinking about, I know that there's a women's shower. I think I haven't really been back there, but now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not someone that gives a shit. But that's only because it's split up, right? Like it's not really a designated men's and women's area. It's just this stall's for a man's in there, a woman's in the next one, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?
No, really. The reality is, it's not a threat to men if a woman
Fair.
is in a man's bathroom. So men don't give a shit.
Yeah, I've never really cared.
You don't care. Guys in general, that's how they are. That's always how men have
Yeah.
been. More open, you walk around, blah, blah, blah. Women have become more like that as the times have changed amongst themselves.
Yeah, again,
But
you're
men
right. I
aren't
couldn't
threatened
care.
by if an effeminate man walked into a man's
Well,
bathroom,
let me tell you this.
take your chances.
At the gym I go to, there's some women that are bigger than me in the sense of muscle. So yeah, I get a little intimidated.
I'm saying
When she's
culturally
whipping down my
speaking,
stall while I'm in there, mom.
right. The difference is if a man chooses to go into, if a transgender, I don't even know what the terminology is. If a man who claims to be a woman goes into a guy's bathroom, he's taking his chances that something's going to happen to him.
Right.
If a man as a woman goes into a woman's bathroom, women in that bathroom, they're the ones taking the risk.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. It's funny how that works because you're completely right, right? If you have 8 men in a men's locker room in one transition, none of us are going to be worried. Whereas if it's vice versa, I don't know how that one's going to go.
Right, but even in an homophobic environment, that person chose to walk into that bathroom. They're taking that risk. Whereas a man walking into a women's bathroom, there's minimal risk to him. Worst is going to happen, he's going to have a picture taken.
Yeah.
Unless a bunch of women gang up on him and try beating him up, which,
Still
who knows
doesn't
if
go
that's
very
gonna
well.
happen.
That's tough.
Right. But I'm saying that's why you hear about it with women more. And even some men are saying, think about it. Would you want a girlfriend in a bathroom with a man in there?
No, yeah, you're right. That's just
It's
how
like
it
a
works.
lot of men are like, I don't want this for my daughter. It's not even about her. I don't want that a man in these rooms, locker rooms, whatever. So Planet Fitness is taking a stand. And my point in the article was, so their stock price fell $10 from $66.92 on March 7th to $56.46 on Tuesday. It's back up to $58.86 on Thursday, but let's watch that stock. If people start boycotting it even more, it's going to be a freaking ghost town.
You'll never see me in a Planet Fitness unless it's from some kind of sponsorship or commercial I'm in. That's
they're
really
not getting it now.
Yeah. With this, are you kidding? They still hire me. They need me, especially after this situation. They're gonna be like, we need this guy.
Well, some of them are struggling to begin with when you walk past them, let alone, when you have this stuff going on.
Yeah. Planet Fitness, you suck. Anyway, ready for this one? Instead of going to the gym, just get one of these. New drug, SLUPP332, mimics the effects of exercise in the body. Mom, we're there. We're at the point. This is a little misleading. I actually looked into this. I had Dave look at it as well. Dave's going to do the podcast in a couple weeks. Hopefully he's been a personal trainer for a long time. So, basically this is a really cool drug if it's true. Basically what it does is it stops atrophy. So it's actually not building muscle. You still have to do the work, but it stops atrophy. So in other words, let's say I take a year off the gym, I won't lose any muscle if I'm taking this stuff. Now, how does this change the game? Now, for us gamers who have ass atrophy because we're sitting in a chair all day, this will help us a lot.
Yeah.
So it attacks. I shouldn't say attacks, but it actually it's called ERR, which is basically the muscle fibers in the body that kind of deteriorate over time. It stops that deterioration, which is pretty nice. It stops muscle fatigue, just aches and pains from muscle damage, like stuff like that, which is really cool to have. But we're still not quite there in the sense of, is this the drug? Is this the one that I take and all of a sudden I wake up shredded? It's not that. But I thought this was really cool because this is something that with time, I think that this could do some great things. I think this is more so good for people who are very into weightlifting. Like, this isn't something I think the average person is going to take as a supplement. This is I'm a bodybuilder. I need this for what I do because it'll help me. I don't know how beneficial it'll be for someone like me or us, whatever,
Well, I'm always curious. It sounds great. What are the side effects? Do we even know? It's just, you can't.
I'll tell you a
Everything
side
else is
effect,
new.
high in estrogen. So if you're taking too much, it's an estrogen-based product, which is interesting because I would have thought it would be testosterone-based, but it's actually estrogen-based. So I think that's because it uses estrogen to attack estrogen. Does that make sense? So one of the things for those of you, I know we're talking hormones here, and I am no scientist. I just know people that know this stuff that relate to me. estrogen is the female hormone, testosterone is the male hormone, but both have certain levels of it. It's just the difference between men and women is men's is much higher in testosterone, women's is higher in estrogen. Basically, if you overdo your estrogen levels in female, you're pretty much good. It doesn't really matter that much. Obviously, it's kind of like with everything, there's a certain amount the body can take. With men, we can have estrogen, but it gets to a certain point where your estrogen goes higher than testosterone. A lot of steroids are estrogen based. So what ends up happening?
You're in the bathroom at Planet Fitness.
Yeah, you're in the bathroom at Planet. Exactly. But you'll notice like guys who take steroids or any type of PED, they have to do what's called cycle off. And the reason that is because when you bring your, again, I'd love for Dave to talk about this. When you get your estrogen to a certain point, your testosterone plummets. So they have to cycle off so that they don't lose their testosterone.
Right.
That's basically the basic concept of how steroids work. So this is doing the same thing, obviously not at the levels of actual steroids or other PEDs, but basically your estrogen is going to start creeping up to where your testosterone levels are. So if you're taking here's the part that they didn't mention. How many times do I have to take this? Is this a 1 pill a week? Is this a once a month? Is this a 3 times a day? Now we're in scary territory, right?
Yeah.
So if it does what it says it does, good. My question is, who's your target audience? Because I don't think this is made for the average person that just says, oh, I don't want to work out, so let me take a pill, right? Yeah. It would definitely help the ass atrophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Or you could just squat. That's the difference. So.
Well, it's very interesting in that when you take a step back, the hormonal balance of human beings, somewhere along the line, we messed it up where it became a problem. But, as men and women age, those hormones tend to go down, the testosterone and the estrogen. Right. And it creates all sorts of physical problems, side effects, if you will. Yeah. We know a lot about it in women. We're only starting to learn more and more about it in men. And I, having had 3 sons, can tell everybody out there, as I'm sure any woman can who's had 3 sons, or sons and daughters, it's not just girls that get affected by hormones when they're teenagers. It's just that theirs is more exaggerated and focused on more, whereas guys have that too. Men have that too. And as we get older and as we age, it's almost as though if we lived in a perfect organic world, it's supposed to happen that way. Like the body is supposed to, I don't want to say break down, but start changing in preparation for the quote unquote end of your life, right? You don't need those hormones anymore. You're not creating new lives. You don't need the physicality for raising children or youngers, if you will, like a tribe mentality. Yeah. So the body naturally does that. For whatever reasons, probably inorganic reasons in the way we live today, it's becoming a problem. So for instance, I think for men, it has been, planned, if you will, to some extent, with the lotions, the creams, the this, the that, trying to make men market to men that they market to women all the time. Yeah. And now we're finding with studies, all these things are lowering men's testosterone.
I think it's more so the preservatives in food. Like whatever they're doing to food, true. I think is a big one. Because like when you look at what we eat on like the daily, like if you go to this is the problem with like quote unquote eating healthy. Even if you are eating healthy, there's still these preservatives. Like you'd have to physically go out and kill a cow to have like the purest meat that is good for the body. Now, even if you go to a grocery store or get it from a butcher, there's still a certain amount of preservatives in there just for longevity that they feed these animals as they're growing. So you'd have to that's why like, you remember the Liver King? Yeah. The Liver King, even though, yes, of course he was on steroids, which is obvious, but he was still eating as healthy as you possibly could. Even though the stuff he was eating was unhealthy, he still raised his own cattle. He had his own, farm. So
Mike saw him down on spring break?
No, you're thinking of Bradley Martin. Oh no, you're right. He did see Liver King. Yeah, my brother took a picture. You're right. Both my brothers, Bradley Martin and the Liver King, all in the span of like a week. And Michael was within like touching distance of like he could have jumped on Liver King. That's how close he was. But what was kind of sad was there was like unless there was people behind Michael.
Jumped on him. That's a weird thing to say.
Well, that's what I mean. He was like right there. If Michael wanted to take him down, he could have. But
so we shake his hand.
Yeah,
something a little bit more aggressive.
It was funny because I had to do a double take. I was like, "Is that Liver King?" But that's what I mean. Like that guy eats super healthy because it's his own food that he's growing, and he gets to choose what preservatives he's putting in the food. Of course, nowadays, just for health reasons, you have to have certain preservatives and things. But
But that's what I'm saying. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have these dramatic drops of estrogen or testosterone. It'd be natural and be part of the life process.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden we're creating these. Well, we're not creating.
You know
but
what it
you
is?
have to question the balance.
We medicalized it, and what I mean by that is now you can get testosterone, right? That used to not really be a thing. Testosterone replacement therapy is more common now in people over the age of 30, more so 40, but over 30. And you can improve your longevity that way. But now the FDA is covering it, and now it costs even more money and insurance and all that to get it. It's a pain in the ass to get testosterone.
Well, estrogen replacement therapy has been around at least, how old is Grandma? At least 30, 40 years.
I think it's much different from that.
Well, no, that's the estrogen. That's what I'm saying, that trying to balance the hormone in females to counteract all the menopause symptoms, which are all caused by radical drops in estrogen, right? But the problem was when they did it initially, because they didn't know, a lot of women were getting cancers because they were overdoing it. That's what I'm saying. They're trying to, so I get really concerned with these type of hormonal pills where, have they done a lot of testing on it? What are the side effects? Because then you find out, we're causing like muscle cancers from it because the body's not meant to be stimulated that way. I'm not bad-mouthing it. I mean, I'm sure it has pluses to it, but a lot of stuff, we need to wait and see what actually happens.
Right.
And you find out in a couple of years, wasn't the best thing after all, right?
Yeah. I mean, with anything medical, everything's always improving. But the one thing we do know is as pure as you can get testosterone or estrogen, whatever you need, that's what you want, right? Because that's just a number of levels. But if you start adding more things to that factor, like if you're doing like an Anavar or a God, I don't even remember all these. The what's the one that all the kids, SARMs, like those are the kinds of things that will really screw up your systems. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever.
It's just scary. I mean, it's the stuff that's so. It used to be, at least like in your father's case, you should take a week off. I think he would take 2 weeks off from exercising. What, now you're telling people, don't take that week off. You better take this pill. Or what, if you're very sick and you can't work out, you should take these pills to maintain the muscle. I'm trying to think of what circumstances.
Yeah, that's also like when they would say, hey, you're not supposed to work out before the age of 13 or it stunts your growth. Like that. And they ended up, like, that stuff's not true. Like, they've disproved that.
Yeah, maybe you'll find, but look at all these diet things, Chris. Again, I don't want to diet, so therefore I'm going to take a shot.
Or Ozempic.
Now I'm obese, right? Now I'm obese and I have to take the shot, but now I'm going to be on it for life. So okay, we solved that problem, and it was probably better to be on a shot every day than being obese and dying young. But are we really fixing the underlying problem here?
No, laziness.
Right? Okay, minimus effects of exercise in the body. All right, so
there's no hard work anymore.
Right. And on top of that, if it's somebody who is in great shape and they want to take time off, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing for people. I mean, if you have to take 2 months off, then that's, what are you, a medical condition?
If you get an injury and you have to, that's a big one. So like, remember when, like a great one's when, those kids that would break their arm and then you get the cast off and they got like a weak arm. Like, I wonder if that would help a lot, but that might be that. I don't know how that one works. Like, I don't know if that atrophies like that. I don't know if it prevents that kind of atrophy.
Target certain muscles? I mean, does it
I doubt it. That would be way too hard. Yeah.
Right. It's an interesting start. It's an interesting for those type of applications. That's interesting. But if it's just I'm lazy and I don't want to work out, so I'm going to take a pill.
My other question is, does it do other muscles like your brain, right? Your brain's a muscle, same principles. So your heart, all that kind of stuff.
No, your brain's not a muscle. Your heart's a muscle.
The brain doesn't have a certain muscle in it?
No, that's all gray matter. That's neurological tissue and stuff. That's not
I guess with all the mental exercises I do, I just feel mentally stronger,
Well, as somebody who works out, it's nice to have the end result, but a lot of people get other physical and mental benefits from working out. You're not going to necessarily get that from a pill. I don't know. Maybe you do.
As I said, it's not. This is just for, if anything, it's more of a recovery medicine rather than a end all be all medicine. But all right, what else do we have? How about this one? This was completely off topic, but we now have basically the real reason why they settled in Hollywood. So this is
What?
OpenAI's new, again, I feel like every podcast, I'm just going through new companies that are getting shut down. So the whole writer's strike that happened where they settled, blah, blah, blah. So OpenAI is like, hey, guess what? We have an app called Sora that's coming out pretty soon. It's a full text to type, text to video AI that will do a whole movie. If I type in a paragraph of what the movie's about, it will do huge chunks of that movie for you. You can say the actor, you could say whatever, as detailed as you want, and it creates a whole movie for you.
There you go.
Obviously, you have to do it in chunks. You can't just say, I need a 3-hour, 30-minute movie on the mark, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is a beta stage, so it's still going to take a while. But, it's just kind of funny to me how this kind of goes to show you how shitty Hollywood is to their actors, the Actors Guild. Basically, they're like, oh, we'll settle for whatever money you want because we already know that we're putting $800 million into this because it's going to get rid of your jobs anyway. So even though we don't need the likeness and stuff, we can make entire movies now with this Sora thing. And I guess it's been put into practice. It's going to be to the public later in the year, but it's already been used. And let's just say Hollywood's buying it. All the companies are like, yeah, let's get money together and buy this thing. So
if you go back in your podcast when they were on strike, what was the actors, the writers? I don't remember who were on strike.
Yeah.
And Fran Drescher, the actress from The Nanny, who was the spokesperson or the president of the union, came out and, everyone cheered because she got this great, agreement. Okay. And I even remember saying Justine Bateman, Jason Bateman's sister, who was on a TV show with Michael J. Fox. That's the last thing I saw her on. She came out of nowhere, and she came out and was saying exactly this. It's a terrible deal because nowhere in there do they address AI.
Yeah.
They can put in an AI actor or actress for an entire TV series. They don't need the actor anymore. They don't need the actress. Nothing was put in this agreement about that. And now we're taking it even further. Now they're doing it to do an entire movie.
Yeah. So the only people that obviously the only good thing I guess you could say that came out of the Actors Guild is they get to keep their likenesses. But then I'm sure some guy in the background said, well, hold on, why do we need their likenesses anyway? We're going to have actors that are better and aren't even real. We don't even have to pay them. Basically, we're not, guys, we're not going to need actors anymore, right? Yeah. The only thing that these actors will have left is to sell their likeness.
Right, and even better, they can take, Taylor Swift's eyes and put it with Angelina Jolie's mouth.
The number one person on Facebook in Brazil or something is this female that is gorgeous, but it's completely AI. It's the number one donated, I don't know if it's an OnlyFans model or whatever, but it's not even a real person. Right? So throw that in a movie. We're done. Right. That's your movie. Just write the script. That's it. Right. So now we have that can do it. So Sora's killing another.
I don't have to pay $30 million to the actor involved and the producer and the director getting their piece. Maybe my ticket prices come down, or maybe I don't even do movies anymore. We just auto feed it. Now, the whole industry is shot.
Yeah, exactly. So, or I don't know if shot's the right word. It's shot for the writers and actors, but we might get some sick movies, right?
Well, and it's more so the producers, because the writers and actors, they get the one-time hit. That's why you see a lot of actors and actresses are the bigger stars. They're always the producers on it because that's how they get more money out of it. You don't need any of that anymore if you do it through AI.
That's true.
All you need are the ideas for the stories.
But you could do Avatar 3 all in AI now because that whole thing's just GFX.
It is an OpenAI.
Yeah, exactly. So NVIDIA, I don't have the article, but they just announced their new chipset for the graphics cards called Blackwell. Yeah. And I was looking at the spec list for this thing. It is, that saying every 2 years or whatever, you get a leap in technology. The leap has always been like this, Mom, but this next one is
oh boy. Yeah. So
this AI stuff, everyone's going to be able to easily run a high level AI with these chips. So again, it's one of those things where everyone, and I think every podcaster said this, including us, it was we got 5 to 10 years before this happens. Honestly, I would not be surprised if this happens at the end of the year where we're we can do this now. Like all these jobs are going to be gone by next year, I think. So
I did see a very positive AI article.
you saw a
I wish
positive article?
well, positive in the sense that it was they performed an entire surgery through AI. I forget what it was. Like it might have been a cancer surgery or whatever.
Yeah.
And the AI improved it so much. I have to find that article maybe for the next podcast. I saw it at the beginning of the week and I thought I put it in the bucket, but I'm not sure. But that was the first time I said, all right, finally seeing something, not Hollywood based or mining
related. Yeah.
Bitcoin based, something that actually has some value to humanity. I saw that and I'm like, all right, that's something that's worthwhile if it did improve the situation. So anyhow,
right.
I'm always down on AI.
Yeah. So the last one I want to talk about, pretty big one. So have you seen this, the Quiet on the Set documentary?
Oh yes.
This is dark stuff. Like this is the kind of stuff that I think everyone kind of secretly knew, but now it's just getting kind of crazy. So I'll give everyone the rundown real fast. So there's this guy named Dan Snyder who's all the way on the right. He was basically like the guy that ran Nickelodeon back in the 90s, all the kids shows. And I kind of have to be careful with how you put this because I think people are kind of calling him like the Harvey Weinstein of Nickelodeon, which is
everything's allegedly.
He's kind of not true based on what we're hearing now. Basically, this guy, if anything, he more so defended all the people who were doing the bad things. So the first episode is with Drake Bell. Do you remember Drake Bell?
Yep.
So Drake Bell, and this is the one I kind of wanted to cover because I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are on this one. So Drake from Drake and Josh, great show. I grew up on that show. His first episode was about basically he was sexually assaulted by one of the guys who was a dialogue actor or dialogue writer, and he was a coach for the kids. And it brings to light all the bad things that happen at Nickelodeon. But then you look back at all your favorite shows, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but you're like, oh shit, because you see, right, Emma Roberts is right there as well as like right. That's Jamie Lynn Spears, I believe. That's Britney Spears' younger sister.
Yeah, I don't recognize the boy in the middle.
That's the kid from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Mom, come on.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't even remember that show. But yeah, it's just it kind of brought to light all the negative things that go on. But then I ask this, which is kind of weird, right? This is my real question to everyone. So a couple months ago, I would say like a year ago now, Drake Bell, if you know the story, he got in trouble because he was like having a relationship with a minor. But there was a lot of weird stuff with that in the sense of it was in her country, which is legal to be 17 or 18 or whatever or 16, 18, 16, 17. So it wasn't illegal, but he got charged with it in America. There was a lot of weird stuff going on with that article. And then it comes out, he's like this guy that basically brings this all to light and he makes it sound really bad. And again, I watched the actual interview. I believe every word he says. But the argument that I've seen is like he's trying to make this extra bad for kind of like a redemption arc, if you will, like to make up for what happened. But then you see all the other people on there and you're like, well, that wouldn't make sense because everyone has stories about this guy. This is where I get a little confused, right? And we kind of had this whole woke movement of believe all women, believe whatever. I bring it back to the Harvey Weinstein situation where everyone was like, this guy's a real garbage human being. Yeah, this guy has to go to jail for what he did. And I completely agree. But for some reason, Dan Schneider is doing all these interviews, right? It's like we're giving this guy a chance. Does that like it's the complete opposite of what anyone wanted, right? We said, hey, let's give everyone a chance when clearly this is not really a guy that deserves the chance to kind of do these apologies and whatever. He's going on like a podcast tour right now, which is weird. Yeah. So people want him on his podcast, which tells me there's either more to the story, but I'm a little confused by like, listen, I understand this is where the needle went too far, right? Yeah. The needle was, hey, put this Weinstein guy in jail, whatever. And then you have kind of the middle point, which is where we should be. But for some reason, we went all the way to the right, which is, I believe that this guy did something. All the evidence is there that he did something wrong and protected these people, but we're going to give him a redemption arc, right?
Well, you have to take it in the context. I agree with what you're saying.
Can I just say real fast? this is the big difference with this one, whereas Harvey Weinstein, obviously scumbag human being, he took advantage of people who were of consenting age. These are children. And I don't know if, like, it's tough to equate the two. Like, obviously there's some equation there, but I don't know, like, how to do it. But I would say that the jokes that were made where this guy was doing, like, weird, he would have, like, pornography on in the room while the kids were in, like, stuff like that. And if anything, you can make the argument it was a bad work environment and the guys apologized and whatever. But these are kids. These are not adults that were consenting and could easily leave the room. These are kids that were dropped off by their parents being told, hey, you're going to shoot this scene for the day. I'll pick you up later.
Right.
It's very different.
In answer to your first, a lot has changed since Harvey Weinstein, specifically when it comes to children and the transgender movement. And children exist for the pleasure of adults. This is becoming the new cultural ideology. That is why kids exist. And these, what are they called? People who are, I can't think of the word, maps or whatever. People that are, they want relationship with children. That's getting a whole new rebirth.
It's called pedophiles.
Right.
There's no special name for it.
No, but that's that. No, there is I can't think of it. Something male attraction person or minor attracted person. They're attracted to minors. This is now getting traction again as being acceptable, especially on the liberal side of the world. Meanwhile, that to my mind, that's why this guy is getting the gloves off treatment. Okay? We're open to this. Maybe he's not so bad. Let me hear his story first, right? I read a story long before this about, it could have been one of these people that wrote it because it wasn't specifically about the show, but they talked about the horrific environment that people have no idea what's going on with children in these type of settings, the Disney Worlds, I don't want to blame anybody, but those young programs, the Nickelodeons, right?
Yeah.
It was written by some person, an adult, observing what was going on with these girls taken off stage and backstage. And why aren't the parents here? And I can't believe this is happening. So this culture's been going on. And there was an individual, Corey, I can't think of his last name. I think we talked about him on the podcast already too. He came out years ago, so he's probably in his 40s now, maybe. He was in a movie called Stand By Me, okay, with River Phoenix and all these young children actors who later grew up and became, popular. He was in it, and he was a messed up guy. And long ago, he was saying the abuse that goes on to kids with the parents not there, no one's looking out for kids, everybody shut him down. They couldn't get rid of him fast enough. And lo and behold, this is the crap that's been going on in this industry forever. And they get away with it for that reason. And keep in mind, some of these parents turn a blind eye because they want their little darling to be a star. And they're willing to sacrifice their children's youth to get it. Not every parent, but you're a fool if you dump your kids off in these environments thinking that they're being protected by their managers or their agents or by the producers of these shows. And now you're finding out the hard way that this is what happened.
Right. Yeah, it's depressing. I wouldn't say I'm really looking at it. Like, I'm not really watching the whole thing, but just because it makes me so mad. But it kind of goes to show that the shows that we looked up to and watched, like, there was stuff going behind the scenes that you're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to watch this again. Right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think a lot more is going to come to light about this one, but Nickelodeon made a statement today like, oh, we don't justify the actions of what happened 2 decades ago. It's like, okay, but it was still, you still have to do something about it. You can't just say, oh, that doesn't happen and won't happen again and then continue on. Right? There's other kids on there.
When at the same time, you're giving this alleged person a lot of airtime. It's not like Harvey Weinstein where everybody turned around and said, I don't know the guy. I don't know him. Nobody. He was poisoned. Now, all of a sudden, we're like, well, it's a bad what happened. But you know what? Let's give him a platform. Don't tell me it isn't still going on today.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Recently, Brooke Shields, who is my age, was a child actress. She even says she was uncomfortable with a lot of things that she did. Her comment was, at least I had a mother, and people always mock the mother. At least my mother was looking out for me. She was an alcoholic, and they wound up having problems later on. But she says, if my mother hadn't been there, I don't know what would have happened to me in some of these situations. She put her foot down. Now, if anybody knows the Brooke Shields story, she's the original, one of the original child actresses who did every kind of risque thing you could think of, and the mother willingly did it. But in the literal sense, according to her,
Oh,
she
that's
was
Brooke
kind of,
Shields.
yeah, she was somewhat protected by her mother, where she wouldn't let it go to the point of let's pull her backstage and do what we want to her, which was what was happening to these kids,
Yeah,
right?
not good.
So it's really, yeah, it's very sad, and they're really harping on, of all people right now, Amanda Bynes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I totally forgot. I don't know if you've seen Amanda Bynes recently. She just started a podcast. It's real, like, I feel bad because I mean, we've talked about it amongst the guys in the Discord, but like she's got face tattoos. She's over, like, clearly we all thought like this was someone that was doing drugs or mom just. Oh, there we go. You lost internet for a second. This was a woman who, I mean, just you could tell there's trauma involved, but we all thought she was a druggie or whatever. And now we look back and we're like, oh, this is what happened to her, right? That's horrible, right? Now assume again, it's all alleged, but like now we understand what these Nickelodeon kids go through, and she was big on Nickelodeon, so that kind of gives you an idea of what happened. And
she was big on Nickelodeon, and then she had a very promising career after that in the mainstream. You remember Easy A? She was in that. She was very good in it. She was in Hairspray, the remake with John Travolta. She was very good in that. She had a period of time where she had it together, and she seemed to be having a post-Nickelodeon career. And then everything seemed to be crashing down. Everybody assumes she's schizophrenic or she had bipolar or something. Obviously, something's wrong with her. I'm not saying that isn't true. But you have to wonder if maybe, she reached a point where all this stuff caught up with her.
Exactly. That's where it gets a little depressing, to say the least. Yeah.
Well, I hope if it helps her, she speaks out, and but I don't think people should be forcing her because she's obviously
it's her story and blah blah blah.
Right.
But
she may not be comfortable going back into that world again. She might be very content to be on the outside. But there's a few actresses lately that mostly actresses. I can't think of any actors that beautiful when they were younger, very the Fonda. Jane Fonda's niece was a popular actress in the 80s and 90s, right? Never heard from her again. And she was in some pretty big movies. And now you look at her and you'd never know she was a Hollywood actress. Yeah. So sometimes it's mental issues, but sometimes you don't know what triggered those mental issues. And now we're getting a behind-the-scenes picture of all these wonderful stories that you kids thought were, La La Land. Not so much.
Right. So we got one podcast question this week. I thought we weren't going to have that much news, but we ended up having a lot. So here's the question. This is an interesting one. I had to do some research on this. What do you think about the current airline industry, and are they cutting corners and forcing workers to do unqualified work? And the reason they ask this is because I've heard complaints about people working while on drugs, rushing safety procedures. That have a whistleblower by the name of John Barnett. Have you heard of this guy?
No.
John
maybe
Barnett.
I have. Oh, yeah.
He may have.
Die recently?
Yeah, he just was. They think most likely it was murders. His family says he was not suicidal. Long question. I like a good long question anyway. So, as someone who travels or has traveled quite a bit in the sense of recently, I should say. I shouldn't say quite a bit, but
Hey, what are you talking about? Travel
yeah, that's a good point. I shouldn't say quite a bit, but we know people that travel a lot, like Uncle.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not fun to fly right now. We also have a pilot in our family, and he's like, "Yeah, this sucks. I hate flying." So
it's a shit show now. It really is.
I don't know why, and what I mean by that is you could talk about the whole COVID situation, but they should have, like the shots and vaccines, but they should have recovered by now, because I know that they were, they got to the point where they were so desperate they were just hiring anyone that was a pilot. I don't know why it would get worse. If anything, I don't know why it would get worse, to be honest with you. I don't know why it hasn't gotten better, I should say. Excuse me. Like, what do you think it is? That's a good question. Like, why does flying suck right now, Mom?
So, yes, to your point, I think it's a lot of it. It started before that. Like, now we're finding out this John Barnett, he worked at, was it Boeing, I believe? He saw a lot of issues with one of the particular planes that was having we were seeing it fall apart in midair. Scary stuff going on. And he was identifying it as a whistleblower. Well, I know why. We were getting all these crappy parts, shoving things in, and these planes were falling apart. He made a point of telling somebody, if something happens to me, it's not suicide. So I think that's why they were investigating his supposed suicide very recently after coming out and saying, I know why all these planes are falling apart. On top of that, yes, to your point, we had DEI entered into the whole pilot sphere, probably because they needed pilots and because, their own rules and regs didn't allow a lot of these pilots to fly. Having said that, they put them all in, and they're not the most qualified in some cases. Okay.
Right.
So people are getting freaking crazy in the world out there. What you see going on in these airports, you add to it the stress of cramming people in, overboarding, not flying in time, needing to unions where, all of a sudden the flight crew can't take the flight because the flight was delayed. So they got to, they're just making
Right.
it so much more difficult to fly. And flying became very stressful with the whole, 9/11 situation. It was never like that before. I don't know, maybe it's fine to have some security measures. Now add to it, well, some people were not even looking at security.
Right.
Okay? You're pissing people off before they even get through the front door of the airport.
Here's one for me that I think we need to stop. I don't think you should be serving alcohol on a plane. I feel like, one, there's no point in that, in the sense of there's no benefit, except for people sleeping, I guess. But it seems like nowadays it's less sleeping and more people like partying on a plane. Does that make sense? Like, think of the amount of people, I shouldn't say amount, but I know that there's been a couple cases of people that are taking Ambien and then drinking on a plane, and then they're seeing things and making these commotions.
Yeah.
I think about it, I'm like, why do we serve alcohol on a plane?
Because when flying originally started, you kids would be floored if you looked at old videos of what it was like to fly.
Oh, yeah, the
in
smoking and the
60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that. You got dressed up.
Oh,
You
yeah,
bought
yeah, yeah.
special luggage. And when you sat down, the stewardess came and brought you a glass of champagne, and you had a steak dinner, mashed potatoes, gravy, with a souffle for dessert. They made it a luxury event. And, it was competing who could do more, who could make it a nicer event. And then lo and behold, more people started flying, and they dumbed it down because they wanted to make more money and cram people into seats. And now we have this
And
commercial.
this is why we fly private.
Oh my God.
This is why we have our own plane.
Funny enough, that is becoming an industry that, where you can slot. It's very hard to do, to just hop on a flight when it's private unless you own the plane. But I just recently saw you could book flights. If you knew a bunch of people that had to go to California for something, you could rent a plane, and it's not much more expensive than a commercial flight nowadays. So that's the other side of it with the whole, now they're going nuts over carry-ons because the airlines are charging you for everything.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. Listen, if there's 100 people on the plane, you get one carry-on bag and enough room for 100 carry-ons, okay? If someone has a bag that's bigger that's taking up 2 slots, get them off the plane.
That's right. I watched an entire segment on some news about people complaining, why are they being so mean with the carry-ons, and they're already charging us and blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, not one person said, just bring one carry-on.
Yeah. Okay.
You one person, stop with the extra bags from the store, stop with all the extra stuff. If you can't fit it in your checked bag, that's your carry-on.
Yeah. I saw someone with a carry-on, Mom, when I flew, that it was like a coffin. It was that big. I was like, how does that work? Luckily, I was in first, but I was like, geez.
How do they get away with it?
I don't know.
Where I find the biggest problems to be, okay? People, you make a rule, and that's fine. If you don't like the rule, either live with it or don't fly. You can't bend the rule, okay? You can't decide for some people, blah, 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 blah. So now my new pet peeve, if you will, is overweight travelers. They're getting angry because,
why can't I have 2 seats? Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Well, like that. One woman was on a flight, and apparently a stewardess was out of control because you have to have the armrest down.
Yeah.
For takeoff, and she knew it wouldn't fit with this overweight person. She was, let me paint the picture for you. She was overweight. Her friend was overweight. They were both in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
And their friends who were on the flight, who were also in wheelchairs and overweight, they saw what happened, and they were appalled. Okay, it wasn't handled the best by the stewardess. I get that. You can handle it better. But we need a new policy for people who are overweight, and it can't be They get to take up multiple seats and not have to pay for it while the rest of the people are crammed in coach, can't find a spot for their overhead bag. It's just, if you're going to have rules, it has to apply to everybody.
Right. Here's another one that I've always wondered. So you know how like when a bag's over a certain weight, it has to be in carry-on, which just means it goes in a plane anyway, right? So how about instead of doing it based on weight, do it on size? Because it's all going to go in the plane anyway.
Well, they do it on size.
Yeah.
Used to be. Sometimes when you would walk up, some of the airlines would have a prototype, like a metal
The
thing.
way it
If your
should
bag
be.
didn't fit in there, you can't take it on the plane. It wasn't a weight thing. It was a size thing. So you had to check it. I was fine with that. But then if it fits, don't let them take that plus 3 other bags that they have in their hands. And what annoys me is these men and women can be outright bitches about stuff. And they have a right to. You're putting people in a confined space and sending them off into the air. There's a certain amount of security that you should have with that, or control, because all of that is federally regulated. If you mouth off at a TSA or at a stewardess or whatnot, that's a federal offense. That's serious. You're not supposed to do that. And they can turn the plane around because it's a security risk. You get people in a plane up in the air. That was even before 9/11. That was a reality. Now we really know. Somebody takes over that plane, these people are screwed. So they do have authority. But you can't pick and choose that authority, because that's how you piss people off. Then they get on planes and they're fit to be tied. Plus this whole business of switching seats. We talked about that on the podcast, as though it's outrageous that somebody wouldn't move because I want to sit next to my kid. It doesn't work that way anymore, because it's not a courtesy seat. Everything's bought and paid for. So the airlines create these tense situations, and then they get pissed when passengers go nuts.
Right.
But I do like your idea of why is there liquor. I agree. I don't think you need it anymore, especially if flights are short.
Yeah. Because I know the UAE flights, they have that bar in the back. It's like the stand-up bar that you can just walk around in. Those are like double-decker planes. But again, it's like, why are you... I'd prefer a shower over a bar, an extra bathroom or something,
Well, here's the other thing too, and this is like everything else in life. When you're flying on a UAE flight, you're paying a lot of money for that.
Yeah.
Odds are you're not going on there crocked and, peeing in the aisle like some of these people do.
Yeah.
When you're doing a commercial flight down to, I'll pick a place, Miami, Puerto Rico, or I don't even know, Boston, after a football game, you know what you're getting. You're getting, crowds of people who bought a ticket, low price, shopped it.
Getting on the plane, struggling to get into the plane and still getting more alcohol. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right.
But, So to answer the question, whistleblower found dead named John Barnett. So I actually kind of looked into this, and I know they say he wouldn't commit suicide, but then I look at kind of what he was dealing with. So this guy tried to kind of single-handedly take on Boeing, like sue them. And for those of you that don't know, first off, he didn't really have enough evidence to sue Boeing. And basically they just countersued the shit out of him to the point where he had no finances left. So, I really like to know when he said, hey, I wouldn't commit suicide. You know what I mean? Because I think my guess is, from what it sounded like he was left with nothing. He just got sued to the ground, countersued to the ground.
Well, I thought he was a whistleblower to the FAA.
But he tried suing. From what I read, maybe it was wrong, but again, I'm sorry, I don't have the article. But basically, it sounds like he tried to sue for defamation, and there wasn't enough evidence. He tried to sue Boeing for defamation, and I guess he just got caught up in lawyer fees, and they just kept countersuing him, and he just had nothing left. It kind of goes to show you it's very hard to take down a big company if you don't have.
And I don't think he was naive about it. Yeah. Right. I don't think he was naive about it. He's known this for a while.
Yeah.
And the fact that he came forward, we've been watching a lot of stuff go on with these airplanes where doors are flying off in that Alaska flight. People seeing duct tape on the wing as you're taking off. That's not a good sign. A lot of doors flying open. So right now he was kind of pushed to come forward, I think, because before this, they would have called him crazy, and he wouldn't have had any attention. With all this going on, all of a sudden he opened some people's eyes, and I think that the handwriting was on the wall. They were going to go after him in any way, shape, or form. Right. But yes, some of these companies, they are very powerful, not alleging anything, just saying you got to know if you're going to take them on.
You got to have everything. Yeah, you got to have a good case.
You need deep pockets to support you. So.
Yeah. All right, Mom, we just did 1.5. pretty solid podcast. I think we covered a lot. I gotta go help Kenny with his
Pretty
computer. So,
Yeah. Good
the only things I have to promote is podcast from last week. We're getting back on the train of videos, still at certain paces, but you know what I mean. Other than that, we finished all the speed runs for the month. Yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. So social media down below, promo codes down below, Discord down below for any questions. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast channel for all the clips for those of you that don't have the time for a full podcast. So we post the clips over there. So go subscribe to that. And that's pretty much it. So we will see you next week. Mom, you're going to do one more, and then hopefully Dave will do the one after that. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. We will see you next time.